Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Have we got a show in store for you? So looking forward to talking with Lee Kjos. Now, you may or may not recognize that name, but you've seen his photographic work on catalogs, magazine covers, you name it, he's done it. He is the guy who makes all of us jealous when his pictures come out. We're all striving for that. But in addition to being an incredible photographer, Lee is also the founder of Boss Shotshells. We're going to talk about the state of non-toxic ammo, and Lee is going to make arguments for uplanders using non-toxic even before the feds impose a regulation like that, and it's only a matter of time. We'll talk Cocker Spaniel puppies. We'll get some photo tips from a master, and you will put your 2 cents worth in on where your dog rides, crate, shotgun, backseat, or whatever. And coming up very soon, we'll take a public access trip down to Texas. Yeah, I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. So stick around here on the Upland Nation podcast. A little closer to home first. Valley quail are my species to study this next couple seasons, so I'm doing it here at home. Yeah, get to do a lot of homework right here. We have a bit of a population, where, mainly because we're the only water source for 30 miles due south of us. So we get a lot of that in our backyard, and I decided to start using that as a little laboratory. Oh, yeah. Now there's a Freudian slip. And then also for selfish reasons, I'll be writing a few stories on valley quail in the next couple of years. And so having a lot of fun with that. One of the indirect benefits is with all these birds coming in, Flick is getting some wild bird contacts well before the season starts, and I'm grateful for that as well. We all need as much help as we can get. In the last week or so, it's been fascinating. He's hit a point twice within 100 yards of the backyard here. We're on a national forest right there. He'll lock up. I'll walk in. I'll fly the birds where I think they are, and sure, they get up, and knock wood, he's been steady. And then behind him, another bunch gets up. There's 15, 18 birds in each of those two bunches. I don't want to think they're two separate coveys. They're close enough together that I think they're just kind of in the same area, same covey, split up a little bit. And he just ends up right between him, threading the needle there. But I'm not sure. Anybody else seen anything like that, whether it's valleys or any other kind of quail? I guess the big news out of all of that is he's steady to wing and shot. We're not killing anything yet, but that's a step in the right direction. Got myself a new little toy play shotgun for the close-in stuff. It makes a pretty good noise. So if you're not going into the toy department at your department store for training gear, once in a while it might be worth a look too. The other thing, and maybe you've had this discussion over a campfire or bellied up to the bar, why not supplemental feeding as a way to build wildlife populations? I understand the arguments against it. I remember some of the vicious winters of 10, 20, 30 years ago where on the big game side, they were doing that as a last resort. But I got to tell you, in our little quail population, if you do the right feeding in the right places, then you get a double and sometimes a triple hatch. It's been working here. Why don't any of the game and fish agencies take a look at some of that? That's a question for your next meeting with the biologist in your region here on the Upland Nation podcast, where we're made possible by Sage and Breaker Gun Care products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Ringneck Nation of Huron, South Dakota, Trulock Choke Tubes, and FurFeathersFriends.com. Yes, Virginia, there is publicly accessible private land for the average Joe, even in a state known for ranches so big you can see them from space. That's Texas. Yeah, the home of private jet landings and big dollar hunting operations, does have a way for you to hunt game birds for $48. That'll get you an annual public hunting permit, and it does open thousands of acres of walk-in private property. I went on and dug around a little. There's a long list. You go by county by county by county in there. Start packing your RV and get that permit, and then head for Texas. You do want to mess with it. Public ground in Texas. Indeed. Good luck. We're brought to you in part by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. You know, they do a great job of teaching. You'll have to watch this season and see how I do, thanks to Dave and Vandy. But they also have an incredible pro shop. If you are just now realizing, I need hearing protection, or I need a new gun case, or whatever it is, they've got it. Shooting glasses from all the big names, hearing protection from ESP, and a few other varieties of hearing protection. Those new Negrini cases, gun sleeves and slip cases, range bags, gun cleaning supplies, they've got it all. Go to midvalleyclays.com. Poke around in their pro shop. They may have something that you need as well. midvalleyclays.com. And once you're done poking around on that website, go to hunthuronsd.com. They're the Ringneck Nation. I'll be there this year, and maybe you want to go too. Want a late season hunt with a challenge? Go to the Ringneck Festival and Bird Dog Challenge in November. 124,000 acres of public access all season. Get a free information pack with maps, discounts, and other information. It's all at hunthuronsd.com. Well, this guy is harder to reach than the celebrities, the pro athletes, the governors and senators I've interviewed over the years. His name is Lee Kjos. And while you may or may not recognize the name, you will recognize his work. He is an incredible outdoor photographer. And we will be talking a lot about that and how you can kind of maybe improve some of your work in that world. And then also, we're finally going to dive deep into the non-toxic shot issue. So if you're agonizing over whether uplanders need to use it or not, Lee's going to make that clear to all of us. Lee Kjos, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
I've never had a intro quite like that, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this since you called. Sorry it took so long to get me dialed in on all the technology, but we're good to go now.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. In fact, one of the funny things is how, guys like you and me, we spend more time in other area codes than in our own area code. Where have you been in the last few weeks?
Oh man, well, I just got home from Saskatchewan yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been yesterday. But yeah, I do. I travel a lot. In the last few weeks, I drove from here out to the shop in Stevensville, Michigan. That's where Boss Shotshells is. I went there, picked up a bunch of ammunition, and then went down to a rider hunt that we were sponsoring for Benelli with their Super Black Eagle 328 gauge. I brought the shells down there, and I was down in that Venice area hunting blue-winged teal.
Yeah.
And then I went right from there up to western Saskatchewan, right on the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta. So I've been gone a lot, yeah.
Oh, my butt hurts just hearing about that because you're driving a lot of that now, aren't you?
All of it.
Yeah.
Like you look at one of those trips and it says it's 20 hours and you're like, I got 3 days to get there, and that's 40 hours of driving.
Yeah. I was thinking of you just a few days ago. I was booking an airline ticket, and I was thinking, that probably really affected you and your industry during the pandemic when you couldn't get on a plane very often.
Oh, that when COVID hit, I don't know how it was with like what you do in your travel, but as a big location photographer, it killed all the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it killed it.
Yep.
And it's still, it's nowhere near back to normal. I think people have found, in fact, I'm not even going to say back to normal. This is normal. This is it.
Yeah, it will be. It is truly the new normal for our generation.
Yep. People have found a new way of doing things, doing business, staying connected. Yeah, it crushed location photography.
Oh, I believe it.
Well, I'm older, so I'm very established, and there are still a number of companies that still want me to do their work, so I'm still traveling and shooting, but boy, it killed a lot of it.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, because most people who will recognize you or your work probably saw it on a magazine cover or a catalog or something like that. Who are some of the familiar names that upland hunters in particular would recognize?
Oh, all the sport dog work for probably the past 15 years, and
wow.
All of Benelli's work for 16 or 17 years. Lots of the gun companies. Under Armour Outdoors, I did a bunch of work for Cabela's and Bass Pro back in the day. I've shot many covers for Ducks Unlimited, Shooting Sportsman, Covey Rise, Wildfowl, Gun Dog. I mean, I've a lot.
You are the guy who probably makes it so hard for me to sell stories to Shooting Sportsmen.
I'm sorry about that.
God bless him. I love him. Ralph Stewart, if you're listening, you are the best editor in the universe. You really make me a better writer. But we've had this discussion 2 or 3 times. He says, I love your words, but I hate your pictures.
Well, I don't know about that, but Ralph is a great editor. I'll tell you that. He's a great person.
Yes, he is.
I bet I've been shooting covers for them for 20 years.
Well, just a little insider information on that. How does that work for a guy of your caliber? Does Ralph just call you and say, "I want a picture of a small Munsterlander on the water," or what?
Typically, he'll send out a request and he'll say, "You know how." I hope this doesn't sound or come off as being like pompous or whatever, but lots of other people, shooters, like they'll submit work, right?
Yeah.
I don't submit work.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did back in the day, but now they're like, hey, they'll call me, like could be John Timms from Covey Rise or Callie from Gun Dog or Doug Barnes from DU. Any of them could call and say, Ralph, and say, hey, I'm looking for a really cool waterfall cover. Do you have anything nice of a dog with a bird? Yep. And I say, and if I don't, I'll go shoot you one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. There is an evolution. You're absolutely right.
For sure. You earn your stripes here for sure, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's flattering and it's gratifying when people are calling you instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is flattering, and it never gets old.
Yeah. Well,
I love hearing from them. I love talking to them. I love talking about how business is, how are things going, and if I can help with a cool cover or a cool feature, just tell me what it is.
So let's get creative here for a minute, because this is the stuff that inspires us. That's what sells the magazines in large part, and or it sells an electric collar or whatever else. What is? I mean, I don't want a trade secret, but I want to know what do you think about when you're trying to make a picture?
I have a tagline at Kjos Outdoors that made sense to me when I started, and it still holds true today. And it's capture a moment, tell a story, move the people. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, first thing, I have it in my head at the end, what I want it to look like, what I want the consumer to feel. And it has to tell a story. It has to, right? Otherwise, it's just another picture, right?
Yeah.
So I think about that, and then I think about how I'm going to capture it, and then I put it together. And then I love Photoshop. I love retouching. I like it when people turn a page and they go, oh, I Kjos shot that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I joke about it because I've been lucky enough to work with some great photographers, and maybe someday you and I will work together on something.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah, I hear you. But we won't go down that rabbit hole. But I used to joke with a lot of them. I would tell them, most of the time you just get lucky, right? You're in the right place at the right time, and you got your finger on the shutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that happens a little bit. But you just talked about you're telling a story. Do you know what the story is, and do you compose this in your head?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well. Mm-hmm. So there's two. I think there's two worlds, at least in my life, in my work life. One's editorial photography and one's commercial photography. To me, they're completely different things. Okay, so commercial photography is I know who I'm working for.
Yeah.
The good thing is for them is I'm authentic in this space. I'm like a creative director with a camera.
Yeah, but not a 29-year-old creative director on Park Avenue. I mean, that is the running joke in our world, isn't it?
I'm born to it. Yeah. I mean, I've never known anything other than what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I just happen to be on the creative side of the world, right? And that's by no work of my own. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the work I've done through my career is not hard work, because it's really hard work, right? But what I'm saying is like the talent part, I guess, and I like to tell people it's the way I see it.
Yeah.
I see things different, right? Well, you can't take credit for the fact that you see things different. We all know where that comes from, right? I mean, you can question like what source it comes from. That's up to each person, but there's no question that ability to see things comes from outside of me. No doubt about it.
So does it come from your outdoors upbringing and who knows what else?
Yeah, for sure. Mom and dad, the way I grew up when a little kid on a hunting and fishing resort in northern Minnesota, and dad was a traveling sportsman before it was even a thing, I think. I mean, I had books like Jack O'Connor back in the day, and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Jimmy Robinson's duck hunting adventures and stuff like that. And my dad, by the time I was 13 years old, I think I'd hunted and fished in 13 different states and 4 provinces.
Wow.
So when I was a little kid, I really didn't know anything other than, holy cow, look at that. And then I was so blown away by what I was seeing that I think that's what got the art part going. Like I'd draw them, I'd carve them, I would paint them, I'll photograph them. And I tell people about photography, no one takes a picture of something they don't want to remember.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And that, honest to God, man, you and the listeners on here right now, you could go through your phone because you've taken them with your phone, and they're spectacular. Oh, they might not be the sharpest and the most colorful, and there might be a photo merge, or you might have cut somebody's arm or leg off or what. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Trust me. Print them. You got to print them. You got to get them off your phone. Otherwise, someday it's just electronic dust. Right? You got to print them and then make a bag. And then somebody's going to pick that bag up in 50 years and go, holy shit, look at Grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that the truth?
It's absolutely the truth.
We talk about why we go hunting. And it's, it's the usual suspects. It's, we love watching our dogs first. We like to be with other cool people. We like the beautiful places we go. But I think we also like the memories that come from them. And we kind of minimize that.
Oh man, who doesn't want to look back and see a picture of their old dog?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Kids, grandkids, daughters that first started to get into hunting, their first greenhead, whatever.
Yeah.
You and I brought up, we were talking a little while ago about Tom Dokken, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Doc told me years ago, this is 3 decades ago for sure, and he goes, a dog will keep a guy in this a lot longer than they normally would have been, and that's a fact.
That
you're gonna go hunting just to take the dog for a walk.
Yeah, he somebody else quoted him on this podcast not 4 or 5 weeks ago. I should write this stuff down.
Have you ever had Doc on?
Yeah. In fact,
he's fantastic.
It's about time to get him back. I'll get him back. One of my big regrets as the pandemic set in, he and I would sit at the front of the Cabela store in Mitchell, South Dakota on opening weekend and sign books and that sort of thing. That was about the only time we get caught up. Now, hey, that stuff's over and done with. So,
very cool. Oh, yeah.
Well, good on you. Now, if you couldn't be here with me on the phone, because this is, I'm sure, one of the highlights of your professional life so far.
It is right up there with photographing Tom Brokaw.
There you go. Cody. Because that's what I'm going to ask. Where would you be, and what would you be doing
today?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be hunting rough grouse in northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No question. I'd be there right now.
Tell me more, because this is a game I don't play very often. But when I do, it's up there. It's up there.
I grew up in northern Minnesota, and when you're a young boy, you're with dad or whatever, and you kind of did. I told you I traveled a lot with dad, right?
Yeah.
But you really liked home. I loved hunting rough grouse. I loved hunting snowshoe rabbits. I loved hunting. Back then, there was in my area, there's really no mallards. It was all diver duck hunting.
Yeah.
Right. So early in the year, it was ringneck ducks. Then the bluebills would show up. Then late season whistlers would show up, and that's kind of what that deal was, And then net whitefish and things like that you did, local things. I loved that. Well, the rough grouse never got out of me. I mean, they're just the coolest. When you hunt them and you've been around them, maybe you're for all your life. I mean, that bird is bar none the coolest upland bird to me that there is. I mean, they're what I like to tell people, like when it comes to photography or work or whatever, they're like, what are you into? Well, I'm into wild things in wild places. Rough grouse are wild. You can't make it up. Pheasants, you can make it up.
Yeah.
Other things, you can make it up. You can't make rough grouse hunting up. It's hard. They kick your butt. You go 1 for 10 when you think you're a pretty good shot.
Yeah, that would be a good average for me, by the
way. They're humbling, right? But they're just beautiful. They taste good. They're cool. They're hard to get to sometimes. They take, great dogs help a ton. They're little guns, 28 gauges, and I just love everything about it.
I remember.
So that's where I'd be.
Yeah, I wrote a story. In fact, I think it was for RGS magazine back when they called it that. I wrote a story and I said, now I understand why hardcore grouse hunters count all the flushes they hear and never see.
Right.
It's sometimes that's as close as you're going to get.
I was on the other night, because I love the conservation organizations and I love supporting them. So I was on the rough grouse one the other night, and I looked and it was opening day, and they posed a question, hey, how's it going for everybody? And the comments start coming in. And exactly what you said.
Yeah.
We had moved this many birds, 25 flushes, 2 in the bag, and that really...
Great day.
It's real... Isn't it true? I mean, you can go goose hunting and see 5,000 geese.
Yeah. No, I understand completely. I mean, look at their whistle lanyards. They got 2 counters.
They got bird counters on them. Yep.
They got one for shot birds and one for flushes.
Yep.
Well, I understand completely.
A big part of that rough grouse woodcock game is the dog, right?
Yeah.
And the dog gets points for fines. That's his game.
Yeah.
That's it. He did the deal.
Yep.
He did it. He did the deal. You didn't come. We didn't get luck, or the flesh was weird. It was too thick, which is normally what it is.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right.
Yeah. Someday I'm going to reinvent skeet by placing a couple dozen telephone poles in the field there. Then it'll be back to its roots, you know?
Right. You got to shoot that bird. You got to shoot that clay target in between these two poles.
Yeah, I got no taxidermy. Right. I got no taxidermy in this studio here, but I've got a framed alder branch. That was my trophy on the last RGS.
Oh yeah,
big hunt.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. So you mentioned something important to both of us and to virtually everybody who listens to this, dogs. That's why we go, and you got a new addition to your family over there, don't you?
Oh boy, do we ever! He's really cool.
Yeah.
We have a field-bred cocker from the UK that I don't know if anybody's heard of the Ryglan Kennels. Jay Lowry and Buffy Chandler over there are doing the best work with a field-bred cocker, and I mean, they are spectacular.
Well, I saw some of the videos, and we're going to talk about that and more. Let me remind everybody, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Lee Kjos. Lee is an incredible outdoor photographer, and he's also the one of the founders of Boss Shotshells. We're going to talk non-toxic ammo for uplanders in the second half of this show. But right now, let's get back to the really important stuff and talk about that new cocker of yours.
Okay, so a few years back, you know the magazine Covey Rise, John Timms there.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you remember the cover of a liver male cocker on the cover.
I think it was the only copy I had a story in.
Are you kidding me? So in there, there's a feature. And the dog's name is Elvis. Okay. Well, that dog, I'm a duck hunter, hardcore duck hunter from the north, and I'm going to go down and shoot this feature for Sport Dog and Covey Rise at Sincola Wild Quail Plantation, in that Thomasville, Georgia area. And I'm like, yeah, it'll be a nice vacation. And I'm like, yeah, Bob White or whatever, yeah, they're cute, whatever. I'll go down and do it. Then I go down there and I'm like, oh, wow, is this a cool game?
Yeah.
That bird's spectacular. The country's spectacular. And I'm like, I can't believe that I haven't given that more credit than I have in my life. And now I'm made up with it. Well, on the wagon, so there's always a couple braces of, big going English pointers on the ground that are just fantastic dogs. They lock up on point, horses stop, you get off the horse, you pull your gun out of the scabbard like a gentleman or a lady would, and you cock it and you drop 2 shells in and you walk up and they're holding and the bird's flush and hopefully you get a couple or whatever, and then this guy named David on the wagon says, send Elvis. And down he goes, and it's this whirling dervish of a brown dog that I mean just like a vacuum cleaner.
Oh yeah.
And then he gets him and he runs up the steps up into the wagon, gives the bird back down, gets another one, comes back, and I'm like, holy man, is that dog cool.
Yeah.
Well, then he gets done with hunting and he goes home with the family and he jumps in the swimming pool with the kids and he's doing the backstroke, and it's just, I'm like, I'm gonna have a cocker someday.
I know. There is no 12-step program for this dog.
Yeah, you need to admit you're powerless, that your life has become unmanageable, right?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you a funny story. When we're making TV shows, on the West Coast, it was a few years later, but every hunting preserve in the West has now traded out their Flushing Labs for Flushing Cockers on the pointing dog Flushing breed brace. And every one of those little dogs, when they're done and they've done all their work, Now Lynn Berlin, my B camera guy, he gets down on his knees and he backs up away from the guide, because the next thing that's going to happen is the cocker is going to get a running start and jump into his arms and say, thank you for bringing me hunting.
It's exactly what they're like.
Yeah.
They want to be. In fact, Jay Lowry and Buffy both, when you go down to pick up the puppy, they encourage that jump into your chest, and they're in you, like they're tight, right?
Yeah. And
it's a fact. It's a fact. So a good friend of mine, Jeff Watt, well, a good friend would be an understatement. He's my partner in crime, bird hunting all over. And he got a black female and named her Ima Keeper. And we call her Keep, right?
Yeah.
And she was a 1-year-old last year, and we did most of our hunting in green timber. And she probably picked up 165 or so, I think, last year.
Wow.
That's a 1-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. I mean, the ability of these cockers is mind-blowing. Okay. So I shot, actually it's coming out right now, so whoever's ever listening, the next issue of Gundog, there's a black female cocker with a bunch of green heads on a tree. That's Keeper, and that's a Raglan kennel field-bred cocker. Okay, Jay Lowry loved the photograph, and I was at Dallas Safari Club show with Boss Shotshells last year in January, and I met Jay. And Jay told me, I'd really like to get a cocker in your hands. And I said, well, I'd love one. And I said, just let me know when you think you have the right one, and I'm good to go. Well, he called me not long ago, and he goes, I got the puppy for you. And I said, perfect. What do we do here? And he goes, just come down on this day and pick your puppy out. I said, what number am I in order? And he's like, no, you get pick of the males.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, perfect, I'll be there. Well, my wife and I went down there, and this being a bird dog guy, when you go looking at puppies, it's really not you picking the puppy out, the puppy picks you, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's the way it is. It really is. Well, this little guy, there was one that was obviously the one we were going to take home. That happened right away. So we named him Bosco. And most people think we named him Bosco because of Boss Company, Boss Shotshells. That's not true. That's not true. When my dad, he passed away. He had me late in life, and he passed away in '94. And so he was, old timer, born in 20 and depression baby and stuff like that in western Minnesota. Well, they had a farm dog, a family farm dog, and it was a border collie.
Yeah.
And his name was Bosco, and it had something to do with the Norwegian, something to do with Norway, and I can't remember what exactly it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had my heart set on naming him Bosco anyway. It just happens to work with the shot shell company too. So
I love it.
Anyway, I picked this puppy up and I come home. Bonnie and I did, and I'm not kidding you, man. That dog he lit the farmhouse up like you can't even imagine. And I've had a lot of dogs, and I've had a couple great ones.
Yeah. And
this guy absolutely he's well on his way to being, like, he really is. He's talented. He's a blast. His personality is next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's, I think part of that is breeding. I think part of it is the breed.
For sure.
But you said the dog picked you. How did you figure that out?
Well, you get down on the ground, or you get in the pen with them.
Yep.
And then you watch them, and they get up in your lap, and sometimes the way they look at you, you can tell that they're way looking at you. What's up? Who are you? What is this? What's going on here? And they feel good. You roll them over on their back, and play with their belly a little bit, and put them down, and they turn around and they come right back to you, right?
Yeah.
Then you come back the next day, and they do it again, and it's over.
I read something recently. There's been some science lately. Where they get these grants is beyond me, but I want in on this stuff. Somebody was doing research with dogs, and they figured out that when you come home, your dog only for you, not for everybody else in the family, but only for the real owner, will they almost tear up. So, their eyes shine, they glisten a little bit. So, yeah, I'm seeing that in your cocker already. I think that's happening. It happened on day one with you, and maybe that's how you choose them right there.
That could be it too, I mean, it's just definitely, I think it's clear cut. It's never been a struggle for me to pick a puppy up out of a litter.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, we're gonna carry on with that because there's never enough time to talk puppies, but I want to talk a little bit about training, and I know you guys are working hard on a lot of that, and like I said, the videos are looking great. Take a moment, pour a coffee. I'll be back with you in 90 seconds. The rest of you, don't go away because we got a lot more coming up on the Upland Nation podcast. Lee Kjos will be sharing a lot more about dogs and photography. We're also going to talk seriously about the non-toxic ammo argument. And then we're going to share your thoughts on where your dog rides when you're going hunting. So stick around. First off, let me remind you that we're brought to you in part by sageandbreaker.com. Just wrote a magazine story for somebody. I can't even remember now, but I highlighted Sage and Breaker's modifiable boar cleaning kit. Now, it's a kit, but it's all self-contained. You just open up a little drawstring bag, and there's the classic boar snake. But they have taken it to the next level with a brass brush and a way to, interchange all this stuff depending on how much serious cleaning you need to do. Fast, easy, versatile. I keep one in my truck vault for every post-hunt cleanup. Of course, that's after the dogs get watered and checked out. You want to learn more about Sage and Breaker's accessories, including that modifiable boar cleaning kit, go to sageandbreaker.com. And quick reminder, if you are still interested, we got some room for you in Huron, South Dakota on the Fur Feathers Friends field trip, I'll call it. Another F in there. What the heck? That is my effort to get everybody who's got a dog to take everybody who doesn't have a dog hunting for the first time, for another time, bring back an old friend or a relative, spouse, kid. Show off your dog in the Fur Feathers Friends initiative. Learn more at furfeathersfriends.com. Oh, speaking of fur, let's get back to that discussion about Cocker Spaniel puppies with Lee Kjos. Lee, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Now, he's brown, dark brown. It's getting closer. You've seen them all, but that light brown. I'm waiting for that dog to just show up on my porch someday. Don't tell my wire hair that, but so you're working hard with this puppy, and I know you're working with a pro or two. I've seen the videos. What are the bigger challenges you're facing? Because you probably have worked with a million waterfowl dogs, and all of a sudden now you got this spaniel.
Boy, big challenge. I guess as far as photography goes, it's they're little in the speed.
Yeah.
I mean, you only get one whack. And here's another thing: when they're that fast, they kind of look goony when you're photographing them running, right?
Really?
So yeah, I mean, they're dynamite, Yeah, they went off,
Yeah. Yeah, they are very nimble.
Yep. Well, I can almost promise you, someday you'll see a cover of him like leaping. I mean, his water entry for a 6-month-old is spectacular. I mean, they're just their ability in the water and with ducks. And I mean, now you go. I mean, do they have limitations? Well, yeah, sure. They're tiny. They don't have fat and hair to take. It's not like we're going to go hunt on western rivers with ice flows or anything in him. He's not going to do that kind of work. But early season blue-winged teal and wood ducks and mallards in the timber when it's nice and warm out, yeah, for sure, no problem.
I can imagine, maybe, I shouldn't presume this, but for you, the bigger challenges with dog management are going to be in the uplands because, you sit in a blind a lot and you know how that all works. Maybe it's just a mental adjustment you need to make.
Mm-hmm. Well, you think about a lab, and that's what I've had forever, right?
Yeah.
And I still have one. He's probably I am fortunate right now. He's bar none the best dog I've ever owned. His name's Cap. He's an 8-year-old yellow male. When you're duck hunting, your lab is always under command, 100% of the time. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
Cockers aren't like that. I mean, he would be when he's duck hunting. Yeah. He will be, but when you go out in the upland world and like teaching dogs to quarter and keep them in close and all that, but in all honesty, I'm going out to, like, I don't want people, I do a lot with puppies. I love puppies, and I get them to a great place where they're introduced to everything and they're semi-obedient and they're ready for a real pro to put their hands on them for a little while. Well, normally it's been Tom Dockin. Right? Doc did Cap. I mean, my yellow male I have right now. And I mean, he's a fantastic dog. And then some of those videos you just saw, that's with Mike Wieben. That's the head trainer out at Oak Ridge Kennel. So I was with Mike, and he helped me with, like, Dockin has that puppy program dialed in. Yeah. That bird and gun intro. I mean, it's I hate to say it, but it's bulletproof. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I brought Bosco over there, and Mike took him, and we went through that, and he's like, "Holy cow, dude, this dog's a blast." So I said, "Well, let's try this," and we tried a little more, and pretty soon you got this dog that loves to work, right? Yeah. And you just keep advancing him as long as they like that. But Jay Lowry invited Jeff Watt with Keeper and myself, Bosco, to come out to North Dakota on the pheasant opener, and hunt pheasants for 3 days. And I'm like, well, I'd love to. And then he said, I'll take Bosco back with me. Yeah. So that'll be cool. Jay will get him, and Jay will love Bosco, and that'll be a cool experience. And that, I don't know, Jay is like, I mean, those I can't even tell you how cool they are, and what a fantastic program Raglan runs there. And I mean, if anybody out there is interested in a fieldbred cocker, I mean, get on the list. I'm telling you to do it. I'm telling you to do it now. Don't wait, because it's only going to get harder. Well, I agree. They've become quite fashionable, and I mean that in a good way. I'm glad to see it. They've deserved their day in the sun. And correct. Yeah. Yep. They earned it. Yep. I would endorse that very same sentiment. Absolutely. All right, switch gears for a minute. Lee Kjos, pro photographer. We're always out there taking really bad pictures. I've already confessed to that. It's probably going to cost me another story assignment, but that's all right. I got plenty. But if you were going to help us become better picture takers, what are a couple things that we probably haven't heard from anybody of your skill level? The first, let's just talk about if it's people or animals or a scene. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and say this: don't be afraid to shoot your iPhone. Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, well, that's what we got. I'm a photographer. And they blow me away. Yeah. I love shooting it. Like I said, though, you got to print it. You can't just let it sit on your phone. Serious. Okay, so now let's talk about what I would do. If you're going to take a picture of people hunting, if the environment is really where it's at, put your camera on, I think it's called 0.5. I think there's 0.5, 1, and 2.5 on an iPhone right now. Put on 0.5. Hold it up in the air over your shoulders, over your head, and try to get the whole scene, the epic beauty of where you're at. If you're interested in the person, put it on 2.5 and get low to the ground. Just get on the ground.
Yeah.
Get on the ground and maybe shoot through the grass. Get some grass in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to shoot a dog, like you got a dog on point, or you've got your lab is holding a duck, or somebody's holding a pet, whatever. Get on the ground below the dog.
Yeah.
Put it on portrait mode. Focus on the bird and the nose of the dog, and then let that background fall off. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you're going to shoot men holding birds, like a cool grip and grin, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
I love them too. I'm not a huge fan of posting.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that, but I do like shooting them for people. If there's men, get down low and shoot. Men look good when your lens is around the belly button or even a little lower. They look a little heroic. Women, if it's just a woman, they might not be happy with shooting them low. You kind of got to get up a little bit. Gals have hips, and they tend to look a little better when you shoot them a little camera high.
Yeah.
But and then the other thing is, take the image. I personally use an app called Photoshop Express. And it blows me away how good they can get when you retouch them in Photoshop. It's mind-blowing, right? Yeah. You do adjust the levels and the contrast, and then add some clarity, and there's hue saturation in there. You can pick your color and brighten the green on a greenhead, or the red wattle on a rooster, or the beautiful yellow or orange sky. It's just a blast, but you got to print them.
Yeah, the more you talk about that, the more I realize there is a tactile sense that we don't use enough. And simply holding a picture in our hands probably it's like I still am a kind of a half-assed musician. And so, you try to learn song lyrics. And the way to learn song lyrics, write them down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
So there's something,
mm-hmm.
Fingertips, they got nerves. And, holding a picture probably does the same thing.
Okay. How old are you? I don't know. How old are you?
I'm your age. I'm right in
62?
there. Yeah.
So what do you think the difference is between, because obviously the same age as I am, so you listen to the same music.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was like feeling an album cover?
Oh, all of I still look at them every day.
Okay.
I got top 5 hanging up in here.
So what do you think about like the phone? I told you it's electric. Dude, that's not an album cover.
No, hold on. Lee Kjos, by the way, great founder of Boss Shotshells, pro photographer. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. First, Lee, we got to go back. All right, everybody else. Record albums were these big, black, round, flat things, and you put it on a gizmo that would twirl around at that, hopefully at the same consistent speed, and music would come out of it. And the joy of record albums was they came in this big 12 by 12 sleeve that had unbelievable art on it sometimes.
Very, very, very influential in what I do for a living was the bands of the late 60s and early 70s. Well, very influential in my life.
I'm glad you brought it up because, I was a professional musician. I spent a lot of time backstage and in the wings and in a lot of green rooms over the years, either playing or pestering those guys for their work dues for the Musicians Union. Of all the folks you shot over the years, because you got to be out front, well, I did that a little bit too. I watched Alice Cooper hang himself 3 times.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. But anyway, of all those folks you shot back then, who were some of the most fascinating or the best subjects or anything like that?
Are you talking about like
rockers?
I really never got to photograph up close any, like Kid Rock would be the only, but Kid Rock wasn't influential to me. I'm talking about the Allman brothers.
Yeah.
Greg and Dwayne. Dwayne died in 1971, and Greg probably had as much influence on me as as anybody did. Led Zeppelin, Leonard Skinner is my favorite live band, studio band of all time, bar none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, John Prine, my wife and I, John Prine's he's probably our favorite ever. We used to love a band called the Amazing Rhythm Aces.
Sure. A St. Louis band, I think.
Oh man, they were fantastic.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. But that's one thing, you know, like in photography, people ask me like, who influenced me?
Yeah.
Well, no photography influenced me.
Yeah.
None. And they said, well, where'd your influence come from? I'm like, well, being out there and doing it and wanting to capture it. But I really loved the old sporting artists, the Bishop and Benson and Lindbergh Hunt. That art that those guys made was what influenced what my photography looks like. 100%. That, and then I'm not going to lie, guys like Greg Allman and what they looked like. I loved those bands. I loved long hair. I loved Harleys, and I still do. Love it.
You know, all of that becomes a part of you, and you know, it becomes embedded in your DNA. There's no doubt about it. I remember watching Captain Beyond come onto the stage. There's a band you'll have to look up. He entered the stage riding on an elephant. And, you know, they never went anywhere, but I admired that guy. And that was to open for Frank Zappa, my favorite band.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. But, you know, all that stuff happened. I interviewed Steve Rinella. In fact, it's a cover story this month in Hook and Barrel magazine. And Rinella, of course, we all know Steve as the meat eater and, you know, the outdoor empire that he has created. So, you know, but he started as a literature student. He got an MFA at somewhere in Montana. So he's a trained academic, scholarly writer.
Oh yeah,
and,
whip smart.
Yeah, and
whip smart dude.
Yeah, maybe you've worked with him. That was my first long-term encounter with him. But
not really. But yeah, I know of him for sure.
My point was, I said, so same thing as you just answered, Lee. Who are your influences? He says, I don't watch outdoor TV. I don't read the magazines. I don't read those other guys' books or anything like that. I want to be influenced by the greats in my world, and my world is literature. So, you know, it happens in different ways for different people, but I really think that is what makes people fascinating. And you're another example of that. What kind of Harley are you riding these days?
It's it's an old school looking bike that's new.
Yeah.
Right? Because I really love shovels. Yeah. Old shovels and knuckles, but the maintenance, I'm not that guy. I have to admit that. I mean, I love them. I just love the looks of a shovel, and I love the sound. Yeah. So
don't you though?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I really do.
I grew up with it. We had a few members of that club across the street when I was growing up. So it was kind of part of our life. Yeah.
So now I have a bike that looks old and is beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's not old. But
all the
cool. Get on it, ride. Yep.
Okay, well that's a great transition to our discussion about non-toxic. Now I want to talk, because you know we're all agonizing over this to a great degree. It's happening in California. It's here. You know that, Lee, better than most people, because hopefully you're selling ammo down there. But eventually, everywhere we're going to be shooting non-toxic, even in the uplands, and it's happening on wildlife refuges, game management areas, etc. You guys who wear a lot more camo than us, you're well aware of all of that and how it's going. But now you're suggesting that even before it's required everywhere, we ought to take a serious look at this stuff. Now here's what I did. I asked my followers, how many shots they take in an average season. Because when we first talked a few weeks ago, I said, it's really not, I mean, yes, it's expensive, but over the course of a season, how much more is it going to cost you to shoot non-toxic shells in the field? Well, for most people, it's a drop in the bucket. They shoot less than 50 shells.
Right.
Over the course of the season. All right, so 50 shells at $1 a piece. All right. That's like 2 Starbucks drinks these days, isn't it?
Think about it.
Yeah. So among other things, what are the reasons we should, and what are your counters to the arguments like, oh, it's so expensive?
Okay. Regardless of whether it's wetlands or uplands, right?
Yeah.
We have this little initiative that we call unleaded, like go unleaded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unleaded for the wetlands, for the uplands, for all lands. If you have the opportunity to get something that's so incredibly toxic out of the environment, why wouldn't you? Okay, now let's circle back to decades ago. I mean, like you said, you're the same age as I am, so you remember hunting and fishing. You remember your life in the outdoors. Who were the stewards of the outdoor world? Think about that. That would be dad and grandpa and uncles, and we policed our own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we are sportsmen, especially hunters, are like the original conservationists. Well, we need to take that step right now and change narratives that are out there right now and start doing things that are right. Now, because I'm talking like this, I'll get hate mail or nasty. I will. I get nasty grams. And it'll be like, there are people that absolutely deny that lead in the environment has any effect on wildlife, non-game wildlife as well. Let's just talk about game species, let alone the non-game kill. There's a study out there, and it just came out a couple years ago. I believe it was done in Missouri by a well-known biologist, and I happen to know one of the biologists that did the research work on this, and it was mourning doves. And I think people could fact check me on this one, but I'm usually pretty good on my numbers here. I believe there's 23 states that allow, in the lower 48, that allow mourning dove hunting. Of those 23 states, last year's harvest was 11.1 million birds. A number of years ago, that harvest was 20 million. 15 million died due to lead poisoning. Okay, so think about that. All right. Now there are people that take the position that I don't believe that. I don't believe lead poisoning's ever done anything to ducks. I don't think they died of lead poisoning. Well, that's nonsense, okay? But nonetheless, you do have to fight that to try to help change the narrative. So what I try to tell people is, it's going to be federally mandated. It's coming. It's like you said, it's coming, and there's not a damn thing you can do to stop it. So do you really have to be told by the federal government what the right thing to do is? Really? Why wouldn't you want to get lead out if there's a great alternative now? And that's the key. Back when in 91, when they imposed the ban on lead shot, we all know steel was absolute garbage at that time. Garbage, right?
Yeah.
It didn't kill, and it was very, very frustrating for the duck hunters.
Oh, and it caused a lot of them to get out of the game.
Oh, or they illegally shot lead for years.
Sure.
Right? Let's be transparent here. That's how bad it was. But now, somebody's going to say, well, you're just saying this because you own Boss. No, that's not why I'm saying it. It is why I am Boss, though. It is why I got into it, because if I could do one thing in my life other than raise great children and be known as a good friend to people, if there's one thing I could do, it would be to change narratives in our world, our sport, that I think are very, very detrimental to the long-term health of the sport. Very detrimental. Lead poisoning is just one. Get lead out of the environment. Come on, man. I mean, I actually had one dude, he told me he's going out to North Dakota, and he was hunting sharp-tail and huns in the western part of the state. And I'm like, what are you bringing along for a shell? And he goes, well, years ago, this Pioche lode, golden pheasant or whatever it was, came on and blah, 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 was on sale, and he bought a whole bunch of it. I said, dude, that's lead. And he goes, yeah, I said, you shouldn't be shooting lead anymore, dude. There's other alternatives out there, right? And his answer to me was, his retort was, nobody saved me any buffalo.
Oh, my God.
I'm not shitting you, dude.
That's incredible.
So, well, it is incredible, but it's also very telling, because that's out there.
Yeah.
And that has to go, right? So there are alternatives out there, and like all things that create great change in this country, it starts with the youth. They're the ones that fight.
Yeah, I get it. I used to have hair as long as yours, and we were there. I'll never forget playing.
So you
tuba.
remember Vietnam, right?
Oh God, yeah, my number was a little high or a little low. I forgot, but knock wood.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember we protested all sorts of things in the president's office at the university. But so we'll get to that. But let's just make sure everybody understands. Boss Shotshells. How do we learn more about them and this philosophy that you're espousing here? What's your website address?
It's bossshotshells.com.
There you go.
We're a direct-to-consumer company only. They're nowhere at retail.
Yeah.
We want to keep it that way because that allows us to make the very best shell for the very best price for everybody.
I love it.
There's not deals, there's not pro staff where you get this and do you guys have a 40% discount? Like, no. You're thinking about the box world, guys. We're not like that.
Yeah.
The cost is already out of the shell. There's no middleman markup. There's no giant retail markup. It is what it is. But I promise you this, there's no shell when you factor in performance and price that's even close.
And I just want to bring that up. I'll never forget the revelation I felt when somebody said, oh, we use the 3-tier distribution system. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean? Can't I just buy stuff? Well, we sell it to a wholesaler or a distributor. Mm-hmm. They sell it to a jobber or to a big box. So everybody there adds a little, and sometimes it's not so little, a little bit more to the price. So by the time it is on the shelf at a big box store, it's a lot more expensive than it could be. And so you're dealing with that. And so are a lot of other people. You can buy all sorts of things that way now. Now
go ahead.
Well, so what is it? Tell us about your shells, especially your shells that are appropriate for an upland guy.
Okay, let me go through two things though.
All right.
Because this is important as long as we're going to talk about Boss, because we don't do anything that does not have a clear benefit to the consumer. We don't have ill-advised product extensions that are quick money grabs to get. No. We make shells with clear benefit. So you have waterfowlers who have to shoot non-toxic, and you have upland hunters who don't everywhere. I mean, on WMAs and wetlands like that, things like that, they have to shoot a non-toxic load. But let's go to what. So you go, what's the clear benefit to waterfowler? Okay. The industry standard for the past 3 years, or 3 decades, 30 years, 30-some, 32 or whatever, has been a steel 3-inch BB for number 2.
Yeah.
Sales prove that out. That's what it is. Okay. Steel is not an effective killer. It's just not. It's too light, right? If I took a ping pong ball and a golf ball and they both are about the same size and I bounced one off your forehead, what one do you want to get hit with first? Right? So, somebody a lot younger than you and I who's never done it before looks at me and goes, "Well, ping pong ball." And I'm like, "Why?" Well, because it doesn't hurt. Exactly.
Yeah, I never took a physics class, but even I know that.
Even I know that, right? Okay. So then they would go, okay, what should I shoot in lieu of this 3-inch BB or 3-inch 2 steel? I would say if you took a Boss copper-plated bismuth 3-inch number 5, you're going to have greater penetration and you're going to have 100 more pellets per shell. So now you have pattern density. Pattern density and penetration is what kills. So if there's a duck hunter out there listening, and you crippled a duck on the water, and it's swimming away, and you know how low they swim, and you're trying to kill it, and you're trying to kill it with 3-inch BB or 3-inch steel, boom, 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 reload, boom, boom, boom. You can't kill it.
He's wending his way through the holes in your pattern, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have enough pattern density to do it.
Yep.
Okay, so the clear benefit to a Boss shot shell in the waterfowl world is the one thing you're going to notice is far, far fewer follow-up shots, a noticeable difference in lost birds due to crippling. Far fewer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so therefore, it becomes, when somebody says, yeah, but it's more expensive, no, it's not. I can actually make a case where it's cheaper in the long run.
How I think I get it, but I'm just a musician. I can count to 4.
Mm-hmm.
What's your argument for any non-toxic shot ammo and any non-toxic load being less expensive?
The benefits to if you value wildlife, there's a difference between waterfowlers and upland hunters. Waterfowl, you have to shoot it.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. And so there you're fighting steel. And steel's cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheap to make. Right? It's no good, but it's cheap. So there's lots of people that just want to go on that. Well, so here's my answer. If you cripple a duck or you cripple a goose and you lose it, does that have any value to you? It does to me. That hurts when I lose things.
Unless you're the guy who got ripped off from all of his own buffalo.
The buffalo. He didn't get the buffalo. Exactly. Right. But in the upland world, let's go back to waterfowl. Those follow-up shots I'm talking about. Okay? So let's say there's a cost difference of between let's say one of the more expensive steel shells and a copper-plated Boss. I'm quite honestly, some of them are the same price. But let's say there's a 25 cent per shell or maybe even a little more difference. Okay, you're allowed 5 ducks or 6 ducks. How many shells is it going to take you to kill ducks? If you're shooting really good shells and you hit them, you're going to pick them up because they got hit hard. Steel, you're going to have follow-up shots. So every follow-up shot is you're cutting into that thing that you called savings. The only time steel is cheaper is the day you pick it off the shelf at retail. From that point on, it becomes more expensive. Here's another thing. If something's cheap and it doesn't work, it's expensive.
Well, that's the bumper sticker. Yeah.
If it's expensive and it works, it's cheap. And that's a fact. That's a fact in almost everything. Okay, now let's flip over to upland.
Okay.
Obviously, in upland world, we don't shoot shells like we do like a snow goose hunter would. The benefit is you're getting lead out of the environment. And it's time we do that. That's it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we do that?
And the same argument, that's the argument today in most locales. But the argument in 5 or 10 years is going to be, you have no choice. You got to shoot non-toxic. Shoot a non-toxic that's going to work better.
why don't we champion that one right now?
Yeah.
I don't need to be told by the government what to do. I know what's right. I love wildlife and wild places more than anything, and I'll do anything to protect it.
Well,
anything.
You got an uphill battle. I'm for you on that. Let's go to the technical side for a minute, because I know that has all changed dramatically. The metallurgy that's involved in this stuff is way different. When a couple manufacturers introduced the first version of a bismuth way back, it was brittleness was the biggest issue.
Fractured.
When basically by the time it came out of the muzzle, it was in little pieces.
It would fracture.
So what happened there, and then what's the advantage to copper plating on top of that?
Well, first of all, our bismuth is alloyed a little bit, which helps with fracturing. And then tumbled. Our shot is beautiful. Like, we don't have irregular looking weird shot. It's tumbled to perfection. They're round, and then they go through plating, and Boss owns the patent on plating high density metal. So copper plating on that, when we did it, helped with penetration greatly in penetration and gel block test. And then it helped with the uniformity of pattern. It was just this, almost like this game changing, like, oh man, is this ever good, right? You're stoked when you see it. Okay. So it's now, you can over choke shells and get them to underperform by over choking. You can, right? That's why we preach, you got a pattern. You have to put this stuff on paper. You have to see what you're doing. So I'm actually, Tuesday, I'm flying out to Missoula, Montana, with Courtney Bastian. She has this event called, her podcast, Bird Dog Babe. She has this women's group out there. It's a grouse camp. And I'm going out there for 2 days to show them patterning and just talk about shot shells and dynamics of shot shells and bore diameter and choke and that relationship between those two things and the shell you pick. Though it's catching on. And once people are educated, it's like, well, why wouldn't you do that? Exactly. Much of this is awareness, so I have to thank guys like you for having me on and let me talk about this, because without you, it's really hard being direct to consumer to get your voice out there.
Well, we can help you with that as well, and we'll talk about that too.
Right on.
That's Lee Kjos. He is with Boss Shotshells, one of the founders there. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Lee, on that note, here's the one thing. When I talked with the leadership of the backcountry hunters and anglers,
BHA, Land.
When I talked to Land Tawney, I said, Land, it seems like so much of your organization centers on beer, and he got a kick out of that, because they do a lot of social events, and I get it. Now, you guys, there is a boss attitude. You guys,
we do.
You guys, you look at life slightly differently. How would you summarize that?
I guess we have this. Our tagline under Boss Shotshells is unmuzzled. Right? And that kind of confused people for a while. They're like, unmuzzled? Does that mean like a choke thing or whatever? No, we're unmuzzled. I mean, we're going to speak the truth. The boss guys, we call them bossmen. That's only because ambassador was taken by everybody else. But wherever we're at, and even the advocates of boss, wherever we're at, it's just straight talk. Right? And there's, quite honestly, some of it's uncomfortable. People don't want to hear certain things. But we have to get these conversations out and on the table, and we have to get let out.
There you get the let out. Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. Well, we will do this again, maybe in person the next time. Lee Kjos, BossShotshells.com. Lee, if people want to see your photography, should they go to your Instagram?
Well, I mean, I haven't really made a post on Instagram for probably like 3 years,
Oh my
but
God.
you'll see some of it on Kjos Outdoors Instagram. But
Yeah.
look at the Boss feed, and you'll see my work. And then,
Yeah.
like I said, Sport Dog and Vanelli, and you'll
Yeah.
still see my work.
The other thing is, I've made a habit now since I've been trying to become a better shooter of looking on the inside of the magazines where they generally will give credit to the cover photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep your eyes peeled there as well, everybody.
Yep.
And,
Here, one more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing for people before I go. I don't want to forget this. On Boss's feed at Boss Shotshells Instagram, if you direct message, I'm the one you're going to be talking to.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk to somebody that really doesn't understand or doesn't have the answer, can't make a commitment. I'm the one.
Yeah.
If anybody out there, your listeners, if anybody has questions on like what to shoot, this is my gun, what choke, what should I call me or direct message. Sometimes it turns into a phone call, but I'll get you dialed in. I promise.
Well, you're not going to get that from the big guys. So take advantage of it while you can. Talk to a great guy, as you can hear, right now on the Upland Nation podcast. And we'll again down the road. Lee Kjos, so happy we finally connected. Thanks so much for being part of the Upland Nation podcast. Have a great season. We'll debrief on all of that and more coming up. But in the meanwhile, be safe. Say hello to Courtney out there. And
will do.
And we'll talk sometime mid-season, all right?
Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect.
Right. Take care now.
Thank you.
Now, the rest of us are going to talk about where our dog is riding in our rig during hunting season, and I think you'll be fascinated by some of the responses to that question. But first off, a couple brief commercial messages. First, from Pointer Shotguns. Yeah, new website, pointershotguns.com. There's a lot of my videos up there, some articles. They got some new models out there, and in fact, you heard it here first. Here comes a side-by-side. Yeah, so if you're looking for that kind of an upgrade, they'll have one very soon, and I'm the guy who's field testing it for them. Learn more about all of the things they have to offer you, including a new single shot for maybe one of the very beginners in your family. PointerShotguns.com. And hurry up, this is your last chance to sign up for the Burt County Bird Bounty, benefiting the Canine Adoption and Mentoring Outdoors program. That's my friends at Pheasant Bonanza, the lodge out there in Tekamah, Nebraska. Camo is the organization. Learn more about them and sign up before October 1st at KAMOINC.org, camoinc.org. Yeah, so I love first off, I love your answers, and I love asking these questions that cause, a few people to think a little bit more about stuff on social media. I asked a while back, put a big picture of that would be Buddy, long gone wire hair of mine in a old kennel I had back in the day, and I asked, does your dog ride in a crate? Does he ride shotgun in the back seat? And the answers were a little bit eye-opening. Jake Takosik says, on long trips, he's in his Roughland kennel. On dirt back roads, he's up front with me as an extra set of eyes. Yeah, I never thought about my dog as a scout for that, but makes sense to me. Philip Urban, we're all jealous of your dog trailer. It's beautiful. Good job. David Vandergriff says, crate 99% of the time. I get it. Jeff Whelan takes his dog. He rides shotgun on short local trips, and in everything else, he's in the crate. Let's see. My Springer Duke is a world-class pheasant dog and needs special treatment. He is hanging on the front seat there, Dan McMahon, and I understand completely. Some of you go through the McDonald's drive-thru when your dog does a good job. If that's where he rides, all the better. Let's see. Roughland Kennel in the back of the pickup for Randolph Taylor. Taylor. Let's see here. A great picture here. Speaking of Roughland, John Lewis, crate in the truck bed with a canopy. Yeah, perfect. That's a nice pile of birds in front there. And classy hat, by the way. Very European-looking hat there, John. So keep up the good work. All right. Don Williams says, my dog's in a crate. I don't let my kids run all over the car, and neither does my dog. Dave DeSmither, my dog likes to sleep in the hammock in the back seat. I think I know what you mean, kind of a seat cover that swings and covers up more than the seat. There are crates in the back if needed. Brian Reynolds, sometimes in a crate, sometimes in the dog room of my horse trailer. And then several people are putting their crates in the back seat of their crew cab pickups. And I'm working on that right now. East Coast Uplander says most of the time that's where his dog, and some others along the same lines. Working on that myself. There's one, James Fritz. Crate in the back seat. Hey, doggy. Good job. Thank you all for being part of the Upland Nation, contributing that. Yeah, I don't know that you realize that people think about that stuff after they see all of your suggestions. And that's how we learn. That's how we share. That's how we become a community, if you will. Yeah, and this is how we become a podcast from the kind support of people like Trulock Chokes. Their address is trulockchokes.com. They are a resource, much like Lee Kjos talking about non-toxic shot. Trulock Chokes and all the guys over there have made a science of figuring out how to make those pellets come out of the muzzle in the right speed, at the right shape. And, you know, you take Lee's advice, you take Scott Trulock's advice, put it all together. All of a sudden, you got a fully functioning shooting system. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You want to improve your shooting overnight? Put some well-built Trulock chokes in your muzzle. Replace the factory chokes. Learn more about what they have, what in the way of resources, from patterning to how ballistics are affecting everything you do out there at trulockchokes.com. Thanks to everybody who made a comment, everybody who left a rating and a review. And thank you to all our sponsors, from Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products to Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Ringneck Nation of Huron, South Dakota, and Trulock Chokes. Yeah, it's just about here. If you haven't gotten out yet, you will be soon. I am looking so forward to my first couple hunts, and you are too, I can almost guarantee it. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Linden. We'll see you down the road real soon.